Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Belanger with Back Pocket Studios. We're continuing on our video series today with senior mortgage broker Nicki Pike with TMG The Mortgage Group. Hi, Nicki. How are you?
Hi, Jennifer. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Are you busy now?
I am busy. My phone has been ringing a lot the last few weeks for sure.
Lots of different questions and unknown. What do I do, eh?
A lot of unknowns, a lot of questions about what do I do going forward? How do I make my payments? A lot of
Mhm.
questions.
So today I wanted to talk about deferring a mortgage. I had never heard of this before. Is this something new that's happened in the situation, or is this something you've seen in the past?
My answer to that is actually yes and no. So lenders have had policies previous to this where you could skip a payment or defer a payment or make changes within your mortgage due to financial hardship. What we've seen is those programs have been expanded. Obviously, this was a once in a lifetime pandemic crisis that we're in, and
Mhm.
lenders have responded in expanding those programs to help Canadians.
So, what does it actually mean to defer a mortgage? I know the government says it's a possibility, but what is it? What does that mean?
It's not what a lot of people think it means. So a lot of people think it's a payment holiday. They're missing that the word defer means push it off. So you are deferring, you're pushing that payment off. It still does need to get made. So different lenders do it in different ways. And so it depends on your individual situation and what options you have as to how that mortgage deferral works for the individual person.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's up to the banker lender, the insurer. So if you put less than 20% down and have an insured mortgage, the insurers can be involved as well.
Oh.
So yeah, it's not always a mortgage deferral that is actually the outcome of a phone call to your bank. It may be, because again, it depends. Everyone's situation is different. Maybe you still have income coming in, but it's reduced. So maybe you
Mm.
need a smaller payment. Maybe you need an interest only payment. Maybe your amortization can be extended back up to lower a payment, or maybe you actually need to defer and make zero payment.
So there are other options. I didn't even realize that.
Yes,
So that would probably be a really good example of why you would call somebody like you and kind of see what those options are.
exactly. And again, it's hard because every bank or lender does have a different policy. And obviously, things have been shifting and changing daily since COVID-19 started.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of what's been keeping me busy is staying on top of the correspondence and the information from lenders and insurers so that I can answer questions for my clients when they call.
Yeah, I bet it's just crazy right now, different changes. So
Mhm.
are all banks offering deferrals, or is it something that is just Alberta based or a specific bank?
No, it's all banks. And it's interesting too. We saw the article come out first saying that the big six are now allowing this. And interestingly enough, I had had correspondence from other lenders of mine before that article hit mainstream.
Mhm.
So, I mean, as we know, the banks get the headlines, right? So there are all lenders are offering it. Again, it just differs as to how and what they're offering and what their
Oh,
criteria are because some are very specific saying when you call in, make sure you're saying that your circumstances are due to COVID-19. So they
mhm.
want to specifically hear that. Others are a lot easier and they're like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll defer it. The biggest thing I think that's happening is so many Canadians are calling in, especially the first week,
Yeah.
right? That first week in March where we realized in Alberta that kids weren't going back to school till September. We realized we had this major new norm of teaching our kids from home, not being able to work, people being let go, hours being reduced, everything hit pretty hard that first week and then the second week. And so banks were receiving huge amounts of phone calls.
Mhm.
And so people then panic more because they couldn't get through,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
Yeah, it's been an adjustment for banks as well because they also had to transition a lot of their staff to work from home
Yeah.
while they were receiving all these calls. So
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah,
So is there situations where somebody might not qualify for a deferral?
yeah, and again, it does vary bank to bank, lender to lender, but absolutely, it is there. There are stories of people that have been denied the ability to defer a payment.
Okay.
So, or maybe they don't defer for the full 6 months, right?
Okay.
And again, that's where these other programs, a lot of them that were around before COVID-19, come into play due to financial hardship.
Mm. So if you defer, will it affect your renewal at renewal time?
It shouldn't affect a renewal other than, I mean, it's such a hard thing to say because it does depend on timing, right? If
Okay.
you've got a mortgage that's renewing while your payments are being deferred, it could
Hmm.
impact the balance that's being renewed,
Okay.
but it shouldn't affect the actual renewal with your current lender.
Okay. And what about your credit? Will it affect your credit?
That's a good question. Technically, no. Deferring a payment should not affect your credit. I say technically because there's a few pieces that go into credit reporting. So we've
Okay.
got two credit reporting agencies in Canada, and unfortunately they're not, no one's perfect, right? So it comes down to a credit reporting system that's not perfect. It comes down to coding. So
Okay.
human error can come into play if these payments are being coded properly or not. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, ideally, technically, they should not. What I'm recommending anyone that I talk to is to timestamp everything. So write
okay.
down who you talk to, write down what time and the date, and
Okay.
ask if they can send you an email saying, yes, as of this day and time, you are approved to defer a payment. Because that way, if it ever did hit your credit because of, the imperfect reporting system, human error, just the timing, the crisis, whatever the reason is, you can go back to your lender and to Equifax or the credit bureau and say, I have confirmation that my payments were supposed to be deferred. This should not be affecting my credit. And then they can fix it.
Oh, that's such a good tip. That's something they should be telling you on the news.
I agree. I wish they wouldn't focus on this small of the picture
Hmm.
when this is the information that people really need to have.
Well, because deferrals aren't something that we deal with every day, you get this little piece of information. It's kind of like all of the different forms of money that they're offering right now for people that are staying home and EI and that kind of thing. But they don't really tell you how to go about getting it or what you should know about it. And it can be very scary for people.
There's always fine print. And, I mean, as much as I read all the articles and the headlines just like everybody else, so I don't mean this in a negative way, but headlines are meant to grab attention.
Yeah.
And there was one headline that was blasted everywhere that deferrals will affect your credit. And if you actually read the article said that they may pull a credit bureau,
Oh.
right? It didn't say anywhere in the article that it could have a negative impact. And so people jumped on this, oh, deferring a payment is going to hurt my credit. And that's why I say, could it? I can't guarantee it won't. But if you
Yeah.
do the right things, you should be able to get it fixed.
So one piece that I think people do miss with the deferral is how does the interest work? Is there still interest being added on there?
Yes.
And is it a lot of interest? Like, what does that look like? Because I think the way they explain it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're not used to those terms.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I mean, it took a lot of us in the industry, we had to really sit down and go over and read and educate ourselves too, because it's not something that we deal with every
Mm-hmm.
day. So if you're doing the true deferral, so you're
Okay.
deferring your payment for 6 months, then your interest gets attached onto your principal.
Okay.
So in that same article I referenced before, it talked about interest building on interest, and people were really upset about that. But realistically, this is money that you owe that you're not paying.
Yes.
So it's, again, deferring doesn't mean that the money doesn't get owed or disappears. So it gets added onto your principal. And
Okay.
then, of course, interest does accrue on interest in that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at the bigger picture of it. Does it free up cash flow for you to feed your family for the next 6 months? Does it
Mm-hmm.
keep you in your home during a time that our houses are our shelter and our safety? Right? If it costs you a little bit of extra in interest, and we can talk more about that too, but you
Yeah.
really have to weigh the pros and cons of this.
Well, and each situation is going to be different. As you said, there's other options.
There is. And realistically, the two things that people need to understand, and again, it depends on the bank and lender and what option works best for you. But again, talking about a true deferral, the interest will get tacked on and accrue. And then the payments that are deferred, those still have to get made.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually get spread out with your payments going forward.
Okay.
So the interest accrues on interest, and your payments will go up at the end of your 6 month deferral time.
Oh, that's really good to know too.
Yeah. So again, it depends. Like I've seen and ran different numbers, and I have a client of mine. We talked about it, and his mortgage is higher. It's a bigger mortgage, so his interest was more. It was about $6,600 that his accrued interest would have been over the 6 months.
Okay.
So that's more than a lot of people, again, that was a larger mortgage.
Mhm.
Other situations, it's half that,
Okay.
right? So if you're looking at interest costs, 3,000 to 4,000 on average, payments going up. I mean, I have seen payments go up about 150 a month going forward.
Okay.
So you do have to understand those nuances of it.
So one important thing though is you can stop the deferral before the 6 months if your situation has changed, correct?
Absolutely. This is very fluid, just like COVID-19 and the
Mhm.
situation we're finding ourselves living in, right? I'm getting updates daily on different situations, different lenders, different options for clients. So absolutely, if something changes and you go back to work, or maybe you find a new job in an essential service, whatever the reason is, you
Mhm.
just call back in. And hopefully the
Perfect.
phone lines are less busy.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think I'd want to be on the other end of some of those phone lines right now.
I have heard really great stories though that, everyone is calm
Mhm.
and handling it as best that they can on both ends.
Yeah, for sure. So, Nikki, right now, what would be your role in this? Should people call you? Should they go directly to the bank? What's your goal?
I think it's up to them. I am more than open to have conversations with anyone that wants to talk it over. And that's what I'm finding, like my personal clients, they're calling to get my advice and opinions. The
Hmm.
unfortunate piece is I can give those opinions and advice all day long. The unfortunate piece is I can't actually get the deferrals approved.
Yeah,
So I can give them a contact number. I can tell them the questions to ask, the information to timestamp, all of that. So I think calling a broker is a good first call.
okay,
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong way, but I think information, especially during uncertain times, is power, right?
for sure. And how do they get a hold of you, Nikki?
You can give me a call, 403-391-2053. I get a lot of texts. If you text, please tell me your name. Otherwise, it just goes into a random slew of texts that I don't know who is on the other end.
Okay.
And of course, email as well. So, or call, any of them work.
Yeah, and you actually do some fun videos on your own along the way to educate your clients, which is really
Yep,
awesome. So they can find you on social media as well.
absolutely. Facebook, Instagram, Mortgage with Nicki. We can share links at the end of the call, whatever.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. I know those answered a lot of my questions. So usually if they answer mine, hopefully I think that they'll answer other people's. Um, Definitely thank you for all you do and for all your advice.
Well, thank you for having me. And yeah, call me anytime.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.